I never thought I'd find myself in a situation like this, but here we are. My name is James, and I'm just another guy who thought he was happily married to a woman named Lisa for the past 7 years. We had what I believed was a solid relationship. At least, that's what I kept telling myself. Lately, though, things started to feel off. I noticed changes in Lisa's behavior that made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. It all started with her being overly secretive about her phone. Lisa used to leave it lying around without a care, but suddenly she was glued to it like it was a lifeline. Whenever I walked into the room, she would quickly lock the screen and shove it into her pocket. I tried to brush it off as just a quirky phase, but deep down, I felt a knot tightening in my stomach. On top of that, she started going out more frequently with the girls, which, in our small circle, meant a handful of her college friends who I never really trusted. I recall a specific night when she came home late from one of those girls' nights. She didn't even bother to text me, and when I asked her about it, she shrugged it off with some weak excuse about losing track of time at a bar. It didn't help that she was wearing a dress that I had never seen before, something tight and revealing. When I complimented her, she laughed it off sarcastically, saying she just wanted to feel pretty for once. That struck me as odd since she never had any problem looking good for me. I tried to shake off the paranoia, but the feeling only grew stronger. The moment of truth came about a week later. I was picking up takeout from our favorite Chinese place when I spotted her car parked in front of a local barbershop. I thought it was just a routine trip for a haircut or something, but as I walked towards the entrance, I saw her through the window, laughing and chatting with my barber, Tony. They were way too close for comfort, her hand playfully resting on his shoulder. A pit formed in my stomach. I had always trusted Tony. He had been cutting my hair for years, and Lisa often accompanied me to the shop, so I never thought twice about him. But seeing them together like that, it hit me like a freight train. I didn't know what to do. Should I confront her right then and there? I decided against it and instead picked up the food. I drove home in a daze, my mind racing with 1,000 thoughts, each one darker than the last. The image of her laughing with Tony replayed in my head over and over again. When I got home, I couldn't eat. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. That night I waited for her to come home, pacing around the living room like a caged animal. Finally, when she walked through the door, I confronted her. "Where were you tonight?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. I could see the surprise in her eyes, quickly masked by annoyance. "Just out with the girls, James. Why do you always have to be so paranoid?" I pressed on. "I saw you at the barbershop with Tony." She laughed, a cold, dismissive sound that made my blood boil. "Oh, come on. It was just a harmless chat, you know how friendly he is." I could feel my anger rising. She was lying and she knew it. I demanded to know if there was something more between them, but she just waved me off, saying I was being ridiculous. That was the moment everything shattered. I felt like a fool standing there while she made excuses. The betrayal hit hard, a mix of rage and heartbreak swelling within me. I had a choice to make: either accept this and live a lie or stand up for myself. As the evening wore on, I realized I couldn't continue this charade. I had to figure out how to move on from this deceitful mess. I was done being the guy who let his wife walk all over him. The emotional impact was overwhelming. I felt betrayed, angry, and profoundly sad all at once. How could she do this to me? What did I do wrong? Questions flooded my mind as I paced around our home, now a stranger's house to me. I spent hours staring blankly at the wall, thoughts racing as I contemplated how to handle this. I finally made a decision. I was going to reclaim my life. I couldn't let her betrayal define me. I needed to make a change, starting with how I looked. If she thought she could throw me away for a guy with a fresh haircut, then I would show her what a fresh look really looked like. But first, I needed to gather my thoughts and plot my course of action. I had no idea how things would unfold, but I was ready to take control. This was just the beginning of my journey to reclaim my dignity. And that's how it all started. After that confrontation with Lisa, my head was spinning and I needed a plan. There was no way I was going to let her walk all over me, especially when she was clearly getting cozy with my barber. I spent the next few days in a haze, replaying every moment in my mind, trying to piece together what had led us here. It felt like I was waking up from a bad dream, only to find that the nightmare was my reality. I started by distancing myself from Lisa. I went on long walks, spending time thinking and gathering my thoughts. With every step, I felt a little more clarity. I realized I had been so focused on making her happy that I had neglected myself, my interests, my looks, even my well-being. So, if she wanted to throw away our marriage for some cheap thrill with Tony, I was going to respond in a way that would make her regret it. I needed to focus on myself and show her what she was missing, but more importantly, I needed to regain control of my life. I scheduled an appointment with a new barber across town. It felt surreal walking into a new shop, but I needed a change. I wanted a fresh look, something that screamed confidence and strength. When I sat in the chair, I explained to the barber, a young guy named Mark, what I wanted. I told him to go bold. We laughed, and for the first time in days, I felt a flicker of excitement. The clippers buzzed around my head, and with every snip I felt lighter, as if the weight of Lisa's betrayal was being lifted away. While I was in the chair, I also decided to spruce up my wardrobe. I couldn't keep wearing the same old clothes that reminded me of better days. I went shopping afterward, picking out clothes that made me feel good, clothes that would turn heads. If Lisa thought she would find someone better, she had another thing coming. As the days turned into a week, I poured myself into self-improvement. I started hitting the gym regularly, fueled by an intense mix of anger and determination. The workouts became a sanctuary for me to channel my feelings. I was getting stronger, not just physically but mentally, too. I began to feel a sense of empowerment that I hadn't felt in years. I was reclaiming my identity, and it felt incredible. With my appearance changing and my confidence growing, I decided to test the waters with a social life. I reached out to old friends I hadn't seen in ages. We hit the bars, played pool, and enjoyed nights filled with laughter. I received compliments from friends about how I looked, and I could feel the old James coming back, the version of me that Lisa had seemingly forgotten. During one of those nights out, I bumped into Tony, my barber. He was there with a group of friends, and my heart raced. I knew I had to confront him, but I had a plan in mind. I approached him, forcing a smile, and struck up a casual conversation. It felt bizarre, but I had to play it cool. "Hey Tony, great haircut you gave me the other day. I'm really loving the fresh look," I said with an air of nonchalance. He smirked, clearly unaware of the tension between us. "Thanks, man, glad you like it. You should come by more often." I could see the twinkle in his eyes, and I thought about the way Lisa had looked at him, the laughter they shared. I wanted to punch him, but instead I leaned in. "You know, it's funny. Lisa and I were just talking about how much she enjoys her haircuts with you." His expression faltered for a second. I could see the gears turning in his head, and it was like watching a deer caught in headlights. "Yeah, she's a great client," he said, trying to brush it off. "Right. I mean, she seems to enjoy hanging out with you a lot," I said, adding a slight edge to my tone. I could feel the tension hanging in the air, and it was exhilarating. I wanted him to squirm a little, to feel the weight of the truth behind my words. Yes, she's fun," Tony replied, his smile faltering just a bit. I decided to let him off the hook for now, but I made a mental note. This was only the beginning. I would watch him closely, and if I found out more about what was going on, I'd be ready to take action. The following week, my phone buzzed with a message from Lisa. She wanted to talk, to clear the air. I was shocked but also slightly amused. Did she really think she could just waltz back in after what she had done? But I agreed to meet her, curious about how she would try to spin her lies. When we met at a coffee shop, I could see the uncertainty in her eyes. She was used to having control over me, and now I was a different man. I let her speak first, and she started with her usual excuses, claiming it was all innocent and just fun. I listened, but inside I was calculating my next move. I had a decision to make. I could confront her with what I knew, or I could let her dig her own grave deeper. But at that moment, I was more interested in how she would react to my new self. I wanted her to see what she was missing, to feel the regret wash over her. So I leaned back in my chair, a smirk creeping on my face. "You know, Lisa, I've been thinking. This whole situation has made me realize a lot about myself." She looked at me, confusion mixed with a flicker of concern. "What do you mean?" I mean, I've decided I deserve better than this, I said, my heart racing with exhilaration. I'm not going to be the guy who gets walked all over anymore. The look on her face was priceless. I could see her processing my words, and for the first time in a long while, I felt powerful. I was no longer the man who would accept betrayal without a fight. I was ready to reclaim my life, and I couldn't wait to see where this journey would take me. The coffee shop felt suffocating as Lisa stared at me, her expression shifting from confusion to anger. "What do you mean you deserve better?" she spat, the bite in her voice unmistakable. "You're acting like I've done something horrible. You're being ridiculous, James." I leaned forward, my hands firmly clasped around my coffee cup. "Ridiculous? Lisa, I literally saw you with Tony. You can't just brush that off as nothing. It's not like you were discussing the weather." I watched as her face paled slightly. For years I had chosen to overlook her little lies, the excuses she made for her late nights out, but now I was done. "Fine, I was at the barbershop having a good time. Is that a crime?" She shot back, her voice rising. "You're twisting it into something it's not. We were just talking." The audacity, I felt a mix of anger and disbelief. "Just talking? Seriously? You expect me to believe you're just some innocent little lamb?" She huffed, crossing her arms defensively. "Maybe I wouldn't have had to if you had given me more attention. You've been so focused on work and your stupid routine that I felt neglected. It's not my fault." That stung. I had been busy trying to provide for us, believing that was enough, but now I saw it for what it was, another excuse woven into a tapestry of lies. "So cheating is your solution? That's how you handle feeling neglected?" The words hung in the air between us. Lisa opened her mouth to respond, but no words came out. Her bravado slipped momentarily, revealing the cracks in her facade. I didn't want to feel pity for her, but it seeped in a little. Tempering my anger, I decided to switch tactics. "Look, I'm not here to fight. I want to know what you're thinking. You're clearly hiding something." She hesitated, and for a fleeting moment I could see the wheels turning in her head. I don't know, okay," she finally admitted, her voice softening. "Things just got complicated. I didn't mean to hurt you." I couldn't help but scoff. "Didn't mean to hurt me? You think telling me you were just chatting with my barber makes this okay?" Her eyes filled with frustration. "I'm sorry I messed up, but you notice how you always talk about what you want. What about me?" I felt like I was losing myself. I leaned back, absorbing her words. I wanted to argue that she could have come to me, that communication was key, but I felt like a fool trying to reason with someone who had clearly made her choice. I could see she was starting to break, realizing the gravity of what she had done. "Let be real, Lisa," I said, my voice steady. "You've made your choices, and now I'm making mine. You don't get to just apologize and expect everything to go back to normal." The realization of our reality settled in the air. The truth was, I had lost respect for her. The woman I married was slipping away, replaced by someone who prioritized fleeting pleasures over our years together. "James, please," she begged, her voice trembling slightly. "Let's try to work through this. I can change, I swear." I raised an eyebrow. "Change? You think I can trust you after this? You think I'm going to let you back in just like that?" The desperation in her eyes was palpable. "I don't want to lose you. I don't want to lose what we have. I care about you." I could see she was putting on a performance, trying to manipulate me into feeling sorry for her. I felt a wave of anger wash over me again. "You cared about me while you were with Tony." I shook my head, disgusted. "No, Lisa, you had your chance. You made your bed. Now you have to lie in it." I stood up, the weight of the conversation pressing heavily on my chest. I wasn't going to let her pull me back in with her pleas and pathetic excuses. I was done playing the role of the hurt spouse. I was reclaiming my life, starting with this moment. "James, wait," she called after me, but I walked out before she could say anything else. The wind hit my face like a refreshing blast, and I felt liberated. I had confronted her and stood my ground. It was a small victory, but it felt monumental. I was on a path of transformation now. I had not only gotten a new look, I was determined to embody a new mindset. I was ready to leave this chapter behind and step into a new life, one where I wouldn't let someone else's actions define my worth. However, as the days rolled by, I couldn't ignore the reality of how hard it was to erase the memories of our life together. I still found myself grappling with feelings of sadness. I had invested years into our relationship, and now it felt like a sinking ship. The emotional weight pressed down on me, but I wasn't going to allow it to consume me. I had to keep moving forward. I spent more time at the gym, pushing my limits. I was building not just muscle but resilience. Each rep felt like a step away from the pain Lisa caused. I rediscovered my love for fitness, running, and the rush of adrenaline. The gym became my refuge, where I could channel all my frustration and sadness into something productive. Meanwhile, I kept my social life vibrant. I was going out with friends, exploring new bars, and embracing the freedom of single life. I even started chatting with a few women I met along the way, all the while keeping my heart guarded. I wasn't ready for anything serious, but it felt good to be out there again, enjoying life. Then one night I received an unexpected text from Tony. He wanted to meet up to clear the air. I was taken aback. Did he really think he could come to me after everything that had happened? I contemplated ignoring it, but a fire sparked within me. I wanted to confront him, to hear what he had to say. So I agreed to meet him. This was my chance to put him in his place, to see the man who had put my life in chaos. I had come this far. I wasn't backing down now. As I prepared for our meeting, I felt a surge of adrenaline. I was ready to confront not just him, but the entire situation that had unfolded. If I was going to reclaim my life, I had to face it head on. The evening was brisk as I made my way to the bar where Tony had suggested we meet. I felt a mix of anticipation and apprehension. Part of me wanted to confront him and unleash all the pent-up frustration I had bottled up since I discovered the affair. But another part of me felt oddly calm, like a warrior preparing for battle but also knowing that the fight would be more about reclaiming my dignity than seeking revenge. As I arrived, I spotted Tony leaning against the bar, a casual demeanor masking what I knew was a world of chaos beneath the surface. The last time I had seen him, he was laughing and joking with Lisa, seemingly unaware of the damage he was causing. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what was to come. "Hey, James," he said, his voice light but with an edge of uncertainty. "Thanks for meeting me." "Let's cut to the chase, Tony," I replied, my tone leaving little room for pleasantries. "What do you want to talk about?" He shifted uneasily, his eyes darting around as if searching for the right words. "I wanted to clear the air between us. I didn't mean for things to get so complicated." "Complicated?" I scoffed. "You think cheating with my wife is complicated? Let's be real here. You knew exactly what you were doing." Tony sighed, rubbing the back of his neck as if the weight of the world rested on his shoulders. "Look, I never meant to hurt you. Lisa and we just clicked. It was a mistake. I didn't think it would turn into what it did." A surge of anger coursed through me and I leaned in closer. "You didn't think it would turn into anything. You're an idiot if you thought I wouldn't find out you were playing with fire." He looked genuinely remorseful, which only added fuel to the fire within me. "I get it, man. I messed up. You have every right to be angry, but I want to make it right. I don't want to be the guy who ruined your life." "Too late for that, Tony. You already did." I paused, my heart racing. "What's going to happen now, you and Lisa? Are you going to keep seeing her while I sit back and lick my wounds?" Tony shook his head, his expression shifting from defensive to sincere. "James, I swear it was never my intention to take her from you. She came to me and I got caught up in it. I didn't think it would go this far. I'm ending things with her." "Ending things?" I interrupted, disbelief flooding my voice. "And what makes you think I believe a word you say? You say you're ending it, but how do I know you won't just keep lying?" He paused, taking a deep breath. "Because I don't want to be that guy anymore. I'm done with the drama. I want to focus on my own life too. I'm tired of being someone's secret." The sincerity in his voice threw me off balance. I had expected a confrontation filled with bravado, but instead I was faced with a man who seemed genuinely introspective. I had a choice to make here. I could either berate him further or take this moment to gain clarity for myself. "Here's the deal, Tony," I said, my voice steady but firm. "You need to stay away from Lisa. If I find out you're still in contact, I won't hesitate to take things further." He nodded, swallowing hard. "I understand, man. No contact, I promise." I studied him for a moment, trying to gauge his sincerity. For the first time, I felt a glimmer of relief. Maybe this was the closure I needed. "If you mean it, then great. But know this, it's not just about you and her. You've messed with my life, so don't assume that your apology is going to fix everything." With a final nod, I turned and walked away. I felt lighter somehow, as if a significant weight had been lifted. Confronting Tony had been cathartic. I was reclaiming my power, taking control of the narrative that had spiraled out of my hands. As the weeks passed, I focused on my path of self-recovery. I kept my distance from Lisa, refusing to let her drama seep back into my life. I knew that moving forward meant letting go of the past, and I was committed to that. I immersed myself in work and my hobbies, pouring my energy into projects I had previously neglected. I took up hiking, exploring new trails every weekend. The beauty of the natural world became my solace, a stark contrast to the chaos of my recent life. Then, one night, Lisa reached out again. This time, it was a more heartfelt message, one that lacked the defensiveness of our last conversation. She wanted to meet and talk about our marriage, about the possibility of fixing things. I felt a storm of emotions, a mix of anger, disappointment, and a hint of longing for the life we used to share. But I also knew I had changed. I had become someone stronger, someone who wasn't going to let her back in so easily. I agreed to meet her, wanting to see just how sincere she was and what she had to say. When we met, I noticed the difference in her demeanor immediately. She looked more vulnerable, a far cry from the defensive woman I had confronted weeks ago. "James, I know I messed up," she started, her voice shaky. "I've been doing a lot of thinking since we last spoke. I want to work on our marriage, but I understand if you're hesitant." "Of course I'm hesitant, Lisa. You shattered my trust," I replied, keeping my voice steady but firm. "It's not just about wanting to fix things. It's about rebuilding something that you tore apart." She nodded, tears glistening in her eyes. "I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make it right. I want to prove to you that I can change." "Proving it will take time," I said, my heart heavy but resolute. "You can't expect me to just forget everything overnight. I understand. I'm ready for that. I just want a chance to show you I can be the wife you deserve." As we spoke, I felt the old familiarity stir within me, but I also knew it wasn't enough. I was in a different place now, stronger, more confident. I had spent weeks reclaiming my life, and I wasn't about to let her derail that progress. We ended the conversation without a clear resolution. I told her I needed time to think about what she said, and as I walked away, I felt the weight of the decision resting heavily on my shoulders. I had a choice to make, whether to give our marriage another shot or to fully embrace this new life I was building for myself. It was a crossroads, and while I still had lingering feelings for Lisa, I also knew I had to prioritize my own happiness above everything else. The road ahead would be challenging, but I was ready to face it head-on, no matter the outcome. After that conversation with Lisa, I found myself in a whirlwind of thoughts and emotions, trying to make sense of everything. I had spent weeks focused on myself, working out, exploring new hobbies, and reconnecting with friends, and I wasn't about to throw it all away for the sake of nostalgia. Yet deep down, I still cared about her. It was complicated, and I felt torn between the past and the future. The days rolled into weeks, and I put more distance between us. I didn't reach out, and neither did she, which felt oddly liberating. I kept busy with work and my new routines, leaning into the physical and emotional strength I had built. The more I focused on myself, the clearer my thoughts became. I realized that I wanted to establish boundaries, not just for Lisa but for myself. I had spent so long letting others dictate my happiness that I now understood it was time to assert myself. Yet every now and then, I found my mind drifting back to the conversations we'd had. I could still hear her voice when she pleaded for another chance. Part of me wanted to see her make good on her promises, to watch her grow and change. But another part warned me not to get swept back into the same cycle of betrayal and heartbreak. One evening, as I was unwinding at home, I received a message from my friend Mike. He suggested we hit the bar for a few drinks. It was the perfect opportunity to blow off some steam and distract myself from everything going on in my life. I hadn't been out in a while, and the thought of being around friends sounded appealing. When I got to the bar, I was greeted by the usual laughter and banter. Mike, along with a few of our mutual friends, had already started the night off without me, and the energy was infectious. We played pool, shared stories, and shared a few laughs. I felt the tension in my chest easing up, and for the first time in weeks I felt like I was truly enjoying myself. As the night wore on, Mike leaned over and asked, "So what's going on with you and Lisa? Have you guys talked about things?" I shook my head, taking a swig of my drink. Not really. I mean, I've let her know that I'm not interested in jumping back into things immediately. It's complicated. Complicated. Sounds like a mess, man, he replied, sharing a knowing look. You've put in the work to turn your life around. Don't let her drag you back down. I appreciated his advice, but a small part of me wondered if I was being too harsh. I know, but there's history there. I don't want to throw it all away without considering the possibility of change. Change takes time, James. You've got to look out for yourself first. No one else will. I nodded, his words resonating with me. The longer I stayed in this new mindset, the more I realized how vital it was to prioritize my own happiness. That night was a reminder of the life I had outside of my relationship with Lisa, friends, laughter, and those moments that made me feel alive. As the evening drew to a close, I found myself walking home, the cool night air helping to clear my head. That's when I received another message from Lisa, asking if we could meet up again to talk. My heart raced, but this time, it wasn't a mix of anxiety and sadness. It was more a feeling of curiosity mixed with caution. I agreed to meet her the following day, and as I prepared, I felt a renewed sense of determination. Whatever she had to say wouldn't change the fact that I needed to focus on my own life, but I was willing to hear her out. When we met, I noticed she looked different, a bit more polished, her hair styled nicely and her demeanor more composed. I could see that she had put effort into her appearance, and it struck me as odd. Was she trying to win me back with surface-level changes? "Hi, James," she said, her voice softer than before. "Thanks for meeting me. I really appreciate it." "Sure," I replied, keeping my tone neutral. "What's on your mind?" She took a deep breath, visibly nervous. "I've been doing a lot of thinking since we last spoke. I realize now that I've taken you for granted, and I'm truly sorry for that. I want to work on myself and on what we had." I watched her closely, searching for any signs of sincerity. "Okay, but what does that look like for you? What have you actually done to change?" "I've started seeing a therapist," she said, her eyes searching mine for understanding. "I want to understand why I made those choices. I don't want to be that person anymore." I leaned back, processing her words. "That's a start, but it's going to take more than just talking about it. You've hurt me, Lisa. I know, and I can't express enough how truly sorry I am," she said, her eyes filled with emotion. "I've been a selfish person, and I don't want to lose you. I want to earn your trust back." "Earning trust takes time, Lisa. It's not something you can just ask for. You have to show it through your actions," I said firmly. "I understand that. I'm willing to do whatever it takes," she insisted. "I miss you, James. I miss us." As I listened to her, I felt a mix of hope and skepticism. Could she really change? Did I even want to go back to the way things were? I had spent so long building myself up. Was I ready to risk it all again? "Look, I need time to think about all this," I said, my voice steady. "I'm not saying I want to jump back into things, but I'm open to seeing where this goes if you truly mean what you say." Lisa nodded, the tension in her shoulders easing slightly. "I'm willing to wait for you, James. I want to show you that I can be better." As we parted ways, I felt a mixture of uncertainty and a glimmer of hope. I wasn't ready to dive headfirst into our relationship again, but I was open to the possibility of taking small steps forward. I had made significant changes in my life, and while I wasn't sure what the future held, I knew I had to protect the progress I had made. For now, I would keep my options open and prioritize my own happiness. The journey of self-discovery was just beginning, and I was determined to embrace whatever came next. As the weeks went by, I kept my distance from Lisa while still allowing for some communication. She was making an effort, reaching out consistently, and even sending me thoughtful texts, but I remained cautious. I was determined to protect myself and the progress I had made over the last few months. While part of me wanted to believe in her sincerity, I could ignore the pain her betrayal had caused. It was a delicate balancing act, one that required constant vigilance. I allowed myself to see her occasionally, but I made sure to stay grounded. Our meetings were filled with small talk, yet there was an underlying tension, an unspoken acknowledgement of the barriers between us. Each time we met, I looked for signs of genuine change. She talked about therapy and the insights she was gaining, but I needed to see evidence, not just words. Then one evening, after a particularly good day at work, I received a text from Lisa asking if we could meet for dinner. I had been feeling good, strong, confident, and content in my life. I agreed to the dinner, curious to see where we stood. As I sat across from her at the restaurant, I could see that she had made an effort to look nice. My heart fluttered with a mixture of fondness and wariness. "Thanks for meeting me," she said, her voice softer than I remembered. "Of course," I replied, taking a sip of my drink. "How have you been?" "I've been working on myself, like I said," she began, her eyes searching mine. "Therapy has been eye-opening. I'm understanding more about my behaviors and why I pushed you away." I nodded, encouraging her to continue. "That's good to hear, but what are you doing to make sure those behaviors don't resurface?" "I've started keeping a journal," she admitted. "It helps me process my feelings and reflect on my actions. I realize now how often I sought validation from others instead of nurturing our relationship." I listened, genuinely intrigued. There seemed to be a depth to her words that hadn't been there before. "That's a step in the right direction," I said, maintaining a neutral tone. "But you know that it's going to take consistent effort to rebuild trust, right?" "Absolutely," she replied earnestly. "I'm committed to doing the work. I want to regain your trust, James. I don't want to lose you again." As the conversation continued, I found myself softening slightly. She seemed more self-aware, less defensive, and genuinely motivated to improve. Yet, a part of me still felt a twinge of caution. I had to remember the hurt, the betrayal. I had built myself back up, and I wasn't about to risk everything without careful consideration. After dinner, as we walked to our cars, I felt an old familiarity returning. There was still a connection, a spark that hadn't completely faded, but I also reminded myself that emotions could be deceiving. "Lisa, I appreciate you being honest with me tonight, but I need you to understand that this isn't just about what you say, it's about what you do moving forward." "I know," she said, her eyes earnest. "I'm willing to prove to you that I can be the partner you deserve." That was the crux of it. I wanted to believe her, but it would take time. I was still in the process of figuring out what I wanted, whether it was a future with Lisa or continuing down my newfound path of self-discovery. As we parted ways, I drove home, reflecting on everything. I felt hopeful but cautiously so. It was all too easy for past wounds to resurface, but I had come too far to let that happen. I wanted my life to be rich, fulfilling, and free from the shadows of betrayal. In the days that followed, I continued my routine, working out, spending time with friends, and focusing on my mental and emotional health. I also kept communication open with Lisa, but I maintained my boundaries. Every message we exchanged reminded me of how important it was to stay grounded in my own identity. Weeks turned into months, and slowly, I noticed small changes in Lisa. She was more open, sharing her feelings without the defensiveness I had once encountered. I began to see glimmers of the woman I had fallen in love with, along with a new side of her that was willing to confront her flaws head-on. It felt like a slow dance between hope and caution, and I wasn't ready to take my foot off the brake just yet. Then one day, as I was getting ready for my workout, I received a call from Lisa. "James, I have something important to tell you," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "What is it?" I asked, my heart racing. "I've decided to take a break from dating for a while," she said, her voice steadying. "I want to focus on me completely before I even think about us again." A wave of relief washed over me. "That's actually really mature of you, Lisa. I think that's a good choice. I know it might seem like a setback, but I don't want to rush anything. I want to be sure I'm truly ready before we dive back into this," she explained. "I respect that," I said, feeling a surge of admiration for her decision. "I think taking that time will only help both of us." As we ended the call, I felt lighter. I knew that healing wasn't a linear journey, but it was one I was willing to navigate. Our future was uncertain, but I was okay with that. I had learned so much about myself during this time, about my worth, my resilience, and the importance of self-love. As I stepped out for my workout, I realized that no matter what happened with Lisa, I was determined to keep moving forward. I was no longer the man who would accept betrayal without fighting for himself. I had reclaimed my life, and that was the most important lesson of all. Whatever the future held, I was ready to face it, strong and confident. I had come a long way from the pain of betrayal. And now I was standing tall, ready for whatever came next.